It was a rainy Tuesday evening when my life took a sudden, unexpected turn. I was just finishing up a long day at work, my thoughts drifting to the peaceful solitude of my small apartment. But then, the knock came. The kind of knock that stops you in your tracks, that sends a shiver down your spine. I opened the door, and there she was, Sarah, my older sister, standing there drenched, tears streaming down her face. It took me a moment to even recognize her. She looked different. Thinner, more worn out, like the life had been drained out of her. Dark circles under her eyes, her whole demeanor haunted. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the confident, controlling sister I had known. "Can I come in?" Her voice was barely audible, trembling with emotion. I froze. The last time I had seen Sarah, she was practically kicking me out of our family home. She had accused me of stealing, forced me to leave, and left me to pick up the pieces of a life I hadn't even chosen. Now, she was standing on my doorstep, asking for refuge. My mind raced. Was this real? Was I really going to let her in after everything that had happened between us? But the years of anger, hurt, and resentment were heavy in my chest. I had worked so hard to move on from the chaos she had created. Yet, seeing her there, so vulnerable, it felt almost impossible to turn her away. With a hesitant sigh, I stepped aside and let her in. Sarah stumbled into my apartment, leaving a trail of wet footprints on the floor. She collapsed onto the couch, her body racked with sobs. I stood there, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but another part, deep down, still fumed with anger. The years of tension, the accusations, the betrayal. How could I forget all of that so easily? "What's going on, Sarah?" I finally asked, my voice cold despite the sympathy that tugged at me. Through her sobs, she managed to explain. Her husband had kicked her out. At first, I was taken aback. Sarah had married a few years ago, but I hadn't been a part of that chapter of her life. I didn't know him. I didn't know what was going on behind closed doors. But as Sarah spoke, my shock quickly turned into disbelief. "He's been abusive," she choked out. "It's been getting worse and worse. Tonight, he just lost it. He threw me out, said if I came back, he'd kill me." A rush of emotions hit me all at once. On one hand, my heart broke for her. No one deserves to live in fear like that. On the other hand, all I could think was, where was this Sarah 6 years ago? Where was this honesty when she was accusing me of things I didn't do? Why was she only vulnerable now, after all the damage she had done? "Why didn't you go to Mom's?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I knew our mother would welcome her with open arms. Sarah's home was closer to Mom's, and yet, she hadn't gone to her. Sarah looked up at me, eyes red and swollen. "I didn't want to worry her," she whispered. "She doesn't know about the abuse. I've been hiding it from her. I didn't want her to know I was kicked out." I felt a storm of conflict brewing inside me. Part of me wanted to be the bigger person, to put the past behind me and help my sister in her time of need. But another part of me was screaming, "This isn't fair." She had forced me out, cast me aside when I needed family the most, and now, after all these years, she expected me to take her in? "Sarah," I said slowly, trying to control the rage bubbling up inside me, "I don't know if I can help you. We haven't spoken in 6 years. You kicked me out of the house, and now you show up here, asking for what exactly?" Her face crumpled, and I saw it, the faintest glimmer of regret. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I know I don't have the right to ask for your help, but I don't know where else to go. I'm scared. I'm alone. And I'm sorry for everything." There it was, the apology I had longed to hear, but was it too little, too late? My mind raced. I stood there, torn between the past and the present, between the sister I had once loved and the one who had hurt me. After what felt like an eternity, I made a decision. I reluctantly agreed to let her stay, just for a few days, while she figured things out with a lawyer. I made it clear, this was temporary. I wasn't getting involved in her mess. I had my own life to live, and I wasn't about to let her drag me into her chaos. For the next 4 days, Sarah stayed in my spare room. We barely spoke. It was awkward. Necessary exchanges, nothing more. I could tell she wanted to talk, wanted to open up, but I wasn't ready. The wounds of our past were still too raw. Then, on the 4th day, everything changed. I was walking to my car in the office parking lot when a man approached me. He introduced himself as John, Sarah's husband. A chill ran down my spine. I was on high alert. Sarah had told me of the abuse, but now, seeing him face to face, my stomach twisted with unease. But what John said next, it left me reeling. The moment John spoke, everything I thought I knew about Sarah began to unravel. Sarah wasn't the victim she claimed to be, he said. She had been having an affair. My mind raced. An affair? With his friend, Tom, of all people? I could hardly breathe. John continued, his voice cracking as he described how he discovered this betrayal. Apparently, Tom had been frequenting their home, sneaking around when John wasn't there. How had I not known any of this? But the most shocking part? John told me that Sarah had filed domestic violence charges against him. He said it so matter-of-factly, like it was the cruelest twist of fate. I was paralyzed, torn between disbelief and the unsettling recognition of Sarah's pattern of deceit. Could this really be true? Was John just trying to deflect blame? After all, abusers often twist the story to make themselves seem innocent, don't they? But then, a strange thought surfaced. This is Sarah. Manipulative. Dishonest. Always playing the victim when it suited her. Could it be that John was telling the truth? John's desperation was clear as he pleaded with me. He asked if I could help him find something, a flash drive. This wasn't just any drive, it supposedly contained security footage from their home, footage that could prove he wasn't the abuser she painted him to be. Was this real? Or was he just desperate to clear his name? He wasn't asking me to lie, he stressed, just to share my experiences with Sarah if it came to that. But could I do that? Could I betray my sister, knowing how much she had hurt me in the past? I didn't answer right away. I needed time to process. John left, his shoulders slumped, and I was left with a storm of emotions I couldn't quite make sense of. I felt torn. What if John is telling the truth? What if Sarah had been manipulating everyone, ruining an innocent man's life with her lies? Or, what if she's right? What if John was really the abuser? By helping him, could I be enabling someone who had hurt her? My thoughts were a mess. I didn't confront Sarah. I couldn't. The fear of what might come next weighed on me. Should I search for the flash drive while she was out? But that felt wrong, a violation of trust. Or maybe I should just confront her directly. But how would she react? Would she admit to lying? Could I even trust her anymore? Days passed in a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about John's words. And then, on one quiet afternoon, I caught a break. I was working from home when I saw Sarah, right there in front of me, using a flash drive on her laptop. My heart skipped. As soon as she was finished, she tucked the drive carefully into her suitcase and left for errands. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't resist. My hands shook as I grabbed the drive, my stomach twisting in knots. I plugged it into my computer. What I found made my blood run cold. There they were. Several clips from the security cameras showing Sarah with Tom. Compromising, intimate moments. And then there were the arguments between Sarah and John, with Sarah clearly losing control, yelling and slapping at him while he tried to de-escalate. It was like a punch to the gut. Sarah had lied. She had manipulated everyone, including me. And now, she was trying to ruin an innocent man's life. I copied the contents, my mind spinning. I didn't want to be a part of this anymore, but the truth had to come out. I returned the flash drive to Sarah's suitcase and, as much as it pained me, I met John the next day. I told him what I found. He was grateful, though a little wary, and asked if I'd testify if it came to that. I agreed. But I hoped it wouldn't. Weeks later, the case went to court. John's lawyer presented the evidence from the flash drive along with testimony from neighbors who had witnessed Sarah's outbursts. It was overwhelming. I didn't even need to testify, there was no need. The judge dismissed Sarah's claims of abuse and instead tore into her for filing false charges. The relief I thought I'd feel never came. Because what happened next was more shocking than anything I'd ever expected. Sarah showed up at my apartment, her face contorted in fury. She screamed at me, accused me of betraying her, of ruining her life. She said I was dead to her. I was stunned. Dead to her? I had just exposed the truth. How could she say that? How could she justify her lies? But the real gut punch came when my mother called. She was livid. Absolutely enraged that I hadn't supported Sarah, that I'd aired our family's dirty laundry. And then, it all came out. My mother knew about the affair. She had known about it all along and had been covering for Sarah. She'd been supporting her lies. I was crushed. I had always known my mother favored Sarah, but I never imagined she would go this far. It shattered me. It made me question every moment I'd spent with them, every word we'd exchanged. How could they do this to me? To John? In the aftermath, I cut ties with both Sarah and my mother. It was painful, excruciating, but I knew it was necessary. How could I keep people in my life who could lie so easily, who would destroy someone else's life to cover their own mistakes? John thanked me again for my help. He's doing better, he told me. He's filed for divorce and is trying to rebuild his life. And as for me, I'm still processing it all. I did the right thing. I know that. But it's come at such a cost. My family is gone. The last remnants of it are gone, but I've gained something more valuable, the knowledge that I can trust my judgment and I can stand up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when it costs me everything. So, what now? What's next for me? I don't know. But one thing is clear, I'll face it with a clear conscience. And that's all I can ask for. Thank you, everyone, for your support during this insane, painful journey. It's meant more to me than you can imagine.